This filthy old Lincoln Wheat Penny could be sitting in a forgotten jar, buried in a drawer, or mixed into your everyday pocket change, and it might be worth more than a brand new luxury car. Some of the ugliest pennies ever found, covered in dirt, dark stains, scratches, and decades of wear, have shocked collectors by selling for tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Before you spend another old penny or toss one aside because it looks worthless, watch until the end, because one tiny detail could turn a 1-cent coin into the biggest financial surprise of your life. What's the first Lincoln Wheat Penny you want to feature? The 1924 Lincoln Wheat Penny is one of those coins that almost everyone overlooks. At first glance, it usually looks like nothing special. In fact, most examples are dark brown, heavily worn, scratched, or covered with years of dirt and grime. Many people assume a coin like this has no value at all. But that assumption has caused countless valuable pennies to be spent, thrown into change jars, or even tossed away without a second thought. If you ever come across a 1924 wheat penny, don't let its rough appearance fool you. Start by checking the date carefully. Even if the coin has faded color or obvious wear, the date can still make it worth a closer look. These pennies have been around for more than a century, so finding one that looks old and worn is completely normal. In fact, many valuable examples look far from perfect. The next thing to do is examine both sides of the coin under a bright light. Look for strong lettering, a readable date, and as much detail as possible in Lincoln's portrait and the wheat stalks on the reverse. Even if the coin has scratches or dirt, collectors often pay surprising amounts for pieces that still have decent detail. Never clean the coin, no matter how tempting it is. A quick polish might make it look nicer, but it can destroy the original surface and reduce its value dramatically. Now here's where things get exciting. While many circulated 1924 Lincoln Wheat Pennies sell for modest amounts, better preserved examples can bring hundreds of dollars. And coins with exceptional quality or outstanding eye appeal have reached thousands of dollars at auction. That means a penny many people would ignore because it looks old or dirty could actually represent a serious payday if it's the right example. Imagine finding one inside an old coffee can full of spare change, tucked inside a forgotten piggy bank, or hidden in a family coin collection that hasn't been opened in decades. It happens more often than people think. Every year, collectors discover overlooked wheat pennies that had been sitting unnoticed for generations. That's why experienced collectors never judge a coin by its appearance alone. A dark, scratched, or ugly 1924 Lincoln Wheat Penny may still deserve a careful inspection before it ever leaves your hands. That single penny could be the hidden treasure everyone else missed, proving once again that sometimes the most ordinary-looking coins hold the most extraordinary surprises. Next coin, writing. The 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny is one of the most commonly overlooked coins in America. Millions of people have seen one, and many have spent it without giving it a second glance. After all, it's just an old penny, or is it? The truth is, some 1946 wheat pennies have surprised collectors with values far beyond their 1-cent face value, especially when they have been preserved better than most people expect. What makes this coin so interesting is that it often doesn't look impressive at all. Many examples are dull brown, covered with decades of dirt, or marked with tiny scratches from years of circulation. Some have been sitting in jars, toolboxes, dresser drawers, or forgotten family collections for generations. Because they look worn and ordinary, they rarely attract attention. That's exactly why valuable examples continue to be overlooked. If you find a 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny, don't judge it by its appearance. Start by checking the date carefully to make sure it clearly reads 1946. Then look at both sides under a bright light. Even if the coin has dark color or light wear, pay attention to how much detail remains in Abraham Lincoln's hair, the lettering around the edge, and the wheat stalks on the back. Coins with stronger details are often much more desirable to collectors. One mistake you should never make is cleaning the coin. Many people think removing dirt will increase its value, but the opposite is usually true. Cleaning can leave tiny scratches and strip away the coin's original surface, making it far less attractive to serious collectors. Even if the penny looks dirty or stained, it's usually better to leave it exactly as you found it. Here's the exciting part. Most circulated 1946 wheat pennies are worth more than face value simply because of their age and collector interest. Better preserved examples can sell for much higher prices, and coins with exceptional condition or beautiful original surfaces have brought hundreds and even thousands of dollars at major auctions. That's a remarkable return for a coin that many people still mistake for ordinary pocket change. Think about how many old pennies are sitting untouched in change jars, inherited collections, or boxes stored away in attics and basements. Somewhere among them could be a 1946 wheat penny that's been waiting decades for someone to recognize its true worth. It may not shine like silver or look rare at first glance, but that's exactly what makes these discoveries so exciting. The next time an old, dirty wheat penny lands in your hand, don't rush to spend it. Take a closer look. That worn little 1946 cent could be hiding a value that most people never see, turning a forgotten piece of pocket change into one of the most rewarding finds in your collection. Next coin. The 1951's Lincoln Wheat Penny is exactly the kind of coin most people would ignore. It doesn't sparkle like silver, it isn't made of gold, and chances are it has spent decades bouncing around in pockets, cash registers, and old coin jars. Today, many of these pennies look dark, dirty, scratched, or badly worn. To the average person, it appears to be nothing more than a common 1-cent coin. But collectors know that appearances can be incredibly deceiving. If you happen to find a 1951 penny, the very first thing to do is look just below the date on the front of the coin. If you see a small letter S, you've found a coin that deserves a much closer look. That tiny mint mark tells you the penny was struck in San Francisco, and while millions were produced, high-quality examples have become much harder to find because so many entered everyday circulation and were heavily used. Now don't worry if your coin isn't shiny. In fact, most genuine finds aren't. A dark brown color, small scratches, and years of wear are completely normal for a coin that's more than 70 years old. Instead of focusing on the color, look for details that remain visible. Can you clearly read the date? Is the S mint mark easy to see? Does Lincoln's portrait still show some hair detail? On the back, are the wheat stalks still noticeable? Every bit of remaining detail can make a difference to collectors. Here's something many people don't realize. A dirty coin is not necessarily a damaged coin. Dirt and natural aging are completely different from harsh cleaning. That's why experts always recommend leaving old coins exactly as you found them. Scrubbing or polishing a 1951's wheat penny may seem like a good idea, but it can permanently reduce its value. Collectors would much rather see an untouched coin with decades of honest wear than one that's been cleaned to look bright. Now for the exciting part. While many circulated 1951's wheat pennies are worth more than their face value, examples with stronger details and better preservation can bring impressive prices. Coins that have survived in outstanding condition have sold for hundreds of dollars, and the very finest certified examples have reached thousands of dollars at auction. That's an incredible reward for a penny that many people still pass over without a second thought. Imagine finding one in a family coin album, an old piggy bank, or a forgotten jar of spare change that's been sitting on a shelf for years. Most people would never suspect that a single letter beneath the date could make them stop and take a closer look. That's why experienced collectors inspect every wheat penny they find, no matter how dirty, scratched, or ordinary it appears. Sometimes the biggest treasure isn't the brightest coin, it's the one everyone else was too quick to ignore. Next coin. The 1952 Lincoln Wheat Penny is the perfect example of why you should never judge a coin by its appearance. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than an old, worn-out penny that's been passed from one person to another for decades. Most examples are dark brown, covered with tiny scratches, or stained from years of circulation. Many people don't even bother to look at the date before tossing one into a jar of spare change. But that simple mistake could mean overlooking a coin that's worth far more than 1 cent. If you find a 1952 wheat penny, the first thing you should do is look just below the date on the front of the coin. If there's a small D mint mark, it means the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. That tiny letter may not seem important, but it's one of the first details collectors check when evaluating an old wheat penny. Don't be discouraged if the coin doesn't look beautiful. Most valuable wheat pennies have lived long lives, and it's perfectly normal to find one with faded color, worn edges, or a few scratches. Instead, hold the coin under a bright light and check whether the date is easy to read. Look closely at Lincoln's portrait to see if some of the hair details are still visible, and flip the coin over to examine the wheat stalks on the reverse. The more original detail that remains, the more collectors may be interested. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to improve the coin's appearance. A quick scrub with a cloth or a cleaning solution might make it look brighter, but it can also leave permanent marks that reduce its value. Collectors usually prefer coins with natural aging because it shows the coin has remained untouched over the years. Even if the penny looks dirty or dull, leave it exactly as you found it. Now here's the part that surprises most people. While many circulated 1952 wheat pennies are worth more than face value simply because of their age, coins with exceptional preservation can command much stronger prices. Well-preserved examples have sold for hundreds of dollars, and the highest quality certified pieces have reached thousands of dollars at auction. That's an incredible outcome for a coin that countless people still treat like ordinary pocket change. Imagine opening an old family coin collection or searching through a jar that's been sitting in the kitchen cabinet for years. Hidden among dozens of common-looking pennies could be a 1952 that's quietly waiting to be discovered. To someone who isn't paying attention, it's just another old cent. But to an informed collector, it could be one of the most exciting finds in the entire jar. Next coin. The 1953 Lincoln Wheat Penny is one of those coins that almost everyone has seen at some point, yet very few people stop to inspect it. It usually doesn't stand out. Most examples are dark brown, worn smooth from decades of use, and covered with tiny scratches that make them look almost worthless. Many end up forgotten in old jars, tucked inside dresser drawers, or mixed into inherited collections. But what if one of those ordinary-looking pennies could actually be worth far more than its face value? If you come across a 1953 wheat penny, the first thing to check is the small letter just below the date. If you see a D, you found a coin that was struck at the Denver Mint. It's a tiny detail, but it's one that every experienced collector looks for. Before you spend the coin or toss it into your spare change, take a few extra seconds to examine it carefully. Don't worry if the penny isn't shiny. In fact, most valuable wheat pennies don't look brand new. Years of circulation often leave them with dark color, worn edges, and natural signs of age. Instead of focusing on how clean it looks, pay attention to the remaining details. Is the date still clear? Can you read the words around the edge without much difficulty? Does Lincoln's portrait still show some hair detail? On the reverse, are the wheat stalks still visible? These are the kinds of features collectors notice immediately. Here's one piece of advice that can save you from making an expensive mistake. Never clean an old coin. It's tempting to remove dirt or tarnish to make it look better, but cleaning can permanently damage the original surface. Even gentle polishing can lower the coin's value because collectors prefer coins that have aged naturally. A dirty penny with its original finish is often much more desirable than a bright coin that's been scrubbed. Now for the exciting part. While many circulated 1953 wheat pennies are worth more than 1 cent simply because collectors enjoy saving them, examples with exceptional detail and outstanding preservation can sell for hundreds of dollars. The finest certified examples have even reached thousands of dollars at auction. That's an incredible payoff for a coin that most people wouldn't think twice about spending. Imagine sorting through a coffee can filled with old pennies from your grandparents, or opening a forgotten coin album that's been sitting in a closet for decades. Right there, hidden among dozens of ordinary-looking cents, could be a 1953 Lincoln Wheat Penny that's worth far more than anyone in the family ever realized. Discoveries like that happen every year because people often judge a coin by its appearance instead of taking a closer look. That's why seasoned collectors never rush through a pile of old wheat pennies. They understand that dirt, scratches, and years of wear don't automatically mean a coin has no value. Sometimes the most overlooked penny in the entire collection turns out to be the one everyone wishes they had noticed sooner. Next coin. The 1955 Lincoln Wheat Penny is one of the most famous pennies in American coin collecting, but here's what makes it so exciting. Most people still have no idea what they're looking at. They see an old, dirty penny with faded color, worn edges, and a few scratches, then toss it into a jar or spend it without a second thought. That simple mistake has caused some incredibly valuable coins to slip through countless hands over the years. If you ever find a 1955 Lincoln Wheat Penny, don't assume it's just another old cent. Start by checking the date carefully. Make sure it clearly reads 1955, then take a closer look at the lettering and the numbers. Even if the coin is dark or heavily circulated, don't let its appearance fool you. Some of the most valuable discoveries have come from coins that looked ordinary at first glance. Now here's where things get really interesting. One version of the 1955 wheat penny has become legendary among collectors because of its dramatic appearance. On these rare coins, the date and lettering appear doubled, making the words and numbers look as if they were printed twice. You don't need expensive equipment to notice it. In many cases, the doubling is visible with the naked eye. It's one of the easiest major coin varieties for beginners to recognize, which is why so many collectors are always hoping to find one hiding in old collections or jars of spare change. Even if your 1955 penny doesn't show that famous doubling, don't put it away just yet. Regular 1955 wheat pennies in outstanding condition are still collected and can be worth much more than face value. Coins that have sharp details, attractive original surfaces, and very little wear have sold for impressive amounts, proving that condition matters just as much as age. Whatever you do, resist the urge to clean the coin. A polished penny may look brighter, but collectors usually want coins with their original surfaces untouched. Cleaning can leave tiny scratches that permanently reduce a coin's value. A naturally aged penny, even one that's dark or covered with decades of honest wear, is often far more desirable than one that's been scrubbed. Imagine finding an old roll of pennies in a family safe, a forgotten coin album in the attic, or a dusty change jar that's been sitting on a shelf for years. Hidden among dozens of ordinary-looking coins could be a 1955 wheat penny that changes everything. Thousands of people have searched for one, but many have unknowingly spent them simply because they never looked closely at the date and lettering. Next coin. The 1957 Lincoln Wheat Penny is exactly the kind of coin that gets ignored every single day. It doesn't shine like a silver dollar, it isn't made of precious metal, and after decades of circulation, most examples are dark brown, scratched, or covered with layers of dirt and grime. To most people, it's just another old penny. But experienced collectors know that some of the biggest surprises in coin collecting come from the coins everyone else overlooks. If you find a 1957 wheat penny, the first thing to check is the small letter beneath the date. If you see a D, that means it was struck at the Denver Mint. It may seem like a tiny detail, but it's the first thing collectors look for when identifying the coin. Before you drop it into a coin jar or spend it, take a few moments to inspect it carefully. Don't worry if the coin isn't bright or shiny. A penny that's more than 65 years old is expected to show signs of age. Instead of focusing on its color, pay attention to the details that remain. Is the date easy to read? Is the D mint mark clear? Can you still see some of the lines in Lincoln's hair? Turn the coin over and look at the wheat stalks on the reverse. Coins with stronger details are usually more desirable to collectors, even if they've spent years in circulation. One of the worst things you can do is try to clean it. Many people believe that polishing an old penny will make it more valuable, but the opposite is usually true. Cleaning removes the coin's natural surface and can leave tiny scratches that collectors spot immediately. Even if the penny looks dirty or dull, leaving it untouched is often the smartest decision. Now here's what makes the 1957 D so exciting. While many circulated examples are worth more than 1 cent simply because collectors enjoy saving wheat pennies, the finest preserved coins can sell for hundreds of dollars. Exceptional certified examples with outstanding quality have even reached into the thousands at auction. That's a remarkable amount for a coin that many people still mistake for ordinary pocket change. There's another reason collectors never skip over a 1957 wheat penny. Some examples from this year are known for unusual varieties and striking errors that can dramatically increase their value. That's why every 1957 penny deserves a careful inspection, even if it looks worn and unattractive. One small detail could turn an ordinary-looking coin into an extraordinary discovery. Picture yourself searching through an old family coin collection, a dusty box in the garage, or a jar of pennies that's been sitting untouched for decades. Right in the middle of those ordinary coins could be a 1957 Lincoln Wheat Penny that's been hiding in plain sight all these years. Most people would never notice it, but someone who knows what to look for could uncover a valuable piece of history. That's why every old wheat penny deserves a second look. The next dirty, scratched, or faded 1957 cent you find could be far more than a simple 1-cent coin. It could be the hidden treasure that everyone else passed by without ever realizing what they had. Next coin. The 1958 Lincoln Wheat Penny holds a special place in American coin collecting because it marks the final year of the famous wheat penny design. After 1958, the reverse changed forever, making this the last chapter in a series that had been part of everyday American life for nearly half a century. That alone makes it a coin worth pulling from your pocket change. But what most people don't realize is that some 1958 pennies have become incredibly valuable, even when they look old, dirty, or far from perfect. If you discover a 1958 Lincoln Wheat Penny, don't let its appearance fool you. Many examples have spent decades in circulation, leaving them with dark brown color, worn edges, and countless tiny scratches. Some have been sitting in coffee cans, piggy banks, and forgotten jars of spare change for generations. To the average person, they're just old pennies. To a collector, they deserve a much closer inspection. Start by checking the date carefully to make sure it reads 1958. Then examine both sides under a bright light. Look for clear lettering, strong details in Abraham Lincoln's portrait, and well-defined wheat stalks on the reverse. Even if the coin has honest wear, the amount of detail that remains can make a noticeable difference in its value. Never rush to judge a coin simply because it isn't shiny. One mistake that can cost you money is cleaning the coin. It's natural to think that removing dirt will make it more valuable, but collectors usually want coins with their original surfaces untouched. Cleaning can leave hairline scratches and remove the natural finish that developed over decades. A naturally aged penny is often much more desirable than one that's been polished to look new. Now here's where the story gets exciting. Most circulated 1958 wheat pennies are worth more than their 1-cent face value simply because they are the last regular wheat pennies ever made. Coins that have survived in outstanding condition can sell for hundreds of dollars, and the very finest certified examples have reached impressive prices at auction. But there's another reason collectors get excited whenever they see the date 1958. One of the rarest and most famous Lincoln cent varieties is associated with this year. A tiny number of 1958 pennies were struck with dramatic doubled lettering, creating one of the greatest treasures in American coin collecting. Those extraordinary coins have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, making them some of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever discovered. While they're extremely rare, that's exactly why collectors inspect every 1958 wheat penny they find. Imagine opening an old family coin album or sorting through a dusty jar of pennies that hasn't been touched in years. Sitting quietly among dozens of ordinary-looking coins could be a 1958 wheat penny that's been overlooked for decades. Most people would never think twice about it, but one careful inspection could reveal a remarkable piece of history with an astonishing value. That's why experienced collectors never ignore the final wheat penny. Whether it's dark, scratched, worn, or covered in decades of grime, every 1958 Lincoln Wheat Penny deserves a careful look. The coin that appears to be worth just 1 cent could turn out to be the most exciting discovery in your entire collection. Thanks for watching.